There's lots I want to discuss with you about law and order tonight. Not least, something caught my eye, dangerous career criminals, apparently with more than 100 convictions, are apparently being spared jail time. This caught my eye, and let me just give you some stats about this, because apparently the number of people with multiple convictions that avoided prison has apparently tripled from 1,200 odd in 2007 to 3,325 in 2023. We're at a time where, loose lips on Twitter can see you get sentenced. I don't agree necessarily with that approach, but I find it absolutely astonishing that you can have multiple convictions and not be sent to prison. What do you think to that?
Well, there was a case which caught my eye yesterday, which was the lady. I think she's like 53, and I think she's a carer for her rather sick husband, and she writes something really quite wrong on Facebook, and that's her actually, and she ends up getting, I think, 18 months. I found that bizarre, because had this been 3 months ago, or is it 3 months ago, she probably have got a suspended sentence for that.
Wasn't that the woman that was saying something like you should burn down a mosque or something with the adults in it?
Yeah.
I mean,
look,
you shouldn't really be saying that.
No, you should not be saying that. And one of the things that might come out of all this cracking down is that people will not be saying that in future on the basis that they may well be going to jail. All I am saying is that 3 or 4 months ago, she would have got a suspended sentence, which may not be right. But the thing is, she got 18 months. What about this? There's a guy in London who stole, on his e-bike, 24 mobile phones from various people in one single day. A massive criminal, a really nasty piece of work. He drove at 50 miles an hour down pavements. People had to scatter to get out of the way. He was chased by the cops and all the rest of it. He ended up getting 20 months, right? Why? All I'm saying is the Prime Minister has ordered the judges, correctly, probably, to crack down on these rioters, correctly, OK? Why don't we have the same sentencing policy throughout the whole year, so that when this guy who steals 20 phones in a day, right, why doesn't he get 5 years, right? Why doesn't he get 5 years? I mean, I agreed with. Do you remember that lady who was murdered in a pub by a machine gunner just before Christmas, on Christmas Eve, in fact? That killer got 48 years. He's 22 years old. He won't be out. That's the earliest he will be out, is when he's 70. OK? Fantastic. Why don't we have judges permanently on the case of these criminals?
Well, I would argue if you've been killing someone with a gun, you shouldn't be out at all, quite frankly. But anyway, whatever. James?
I do think we are seeing people getting prison terms for words, and then people not getting much for actions, and that's got to be a problem. There's one of these cases that's come up from the recent riots around that, but from the Online Harms Act that's now in place. And one of them I saw, I think it's on trial tomorrow. There was a rapper who on TikTok said something which is libelous about Tommy Robinson, but they're being taken for a criminal charge which could end up in a prison term, which seems to me quite weird. I think if you libel someone, then the person you've libelled is entitled to take you to court, and that's not a matter for our criminal justice system and our prisons, which really should be about serious offenders and people that are a danger to other people, and the rehabilitation of those where that's possible. So I think in some of these, and of course you can cherry-pick different cases.
I need to be clear about the particulars of the specifics of the case you're referring to, if I've got my facts straight. I think that you're referring to a fella that goes by the name of Twister Cheese.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, how pathetic. What kind of grown man calls himself Twister Cheese? Anyway, that aside, what he actually said was that he made some social media posts suggesting that Tommy Robinson had told people to attack mosques. And that was not true.
Yeah,
so the claim that he's found himself in trouble under is not just about, oh, it's libel. It's about you've deliberately misrepresented something, and therefore you've perhaps incited other people to go out and retaliate. And I need to be careful because this is a live case.
So my point there is that we have libel law. Before we had the Online Harms Bill Act now, that we had libel, we still have libel. If he has libelled Tommy Robinson, then Tommy Robinson is entitled to take him to court for damages on that basis. I'm saying that if you say that if I say Kelvin Mackenzie said, some offensive bad thing that he didn't say, I don't think I should be taken to criminal court. I think Kelvin is entitled to say...
I know, but we're in this whole different world now, and I do need to be careful about the specifics of the case that you're talking about, because, as you say, this person is back at court on Friday.
In more general terms.
So let me broaden this out. We have found ourselves in what I would almost call some kind of clown world, where we've rushed now to criminalise people for things that previously you shouldn't be doing, I don't think you should be doing. But whether or not they would be criminal acts that should result in prison time, I would personally dispute. And if you're going to do that on one side of the fence, so if you're going to start saying, and again, I need to be a bit careful about what I say because there's live criminal cases, but on one side of the fence, if you're going to start saying, you're going to be legally in trouble if you suggested that the killer of the Southport girls was an asylum seeker and that's false, and then you whipped up hatred. If you're going to be in trouble on that side of the fence criminally for that, it then also stands to reason, if that is your kind of threshold and your mindset, then it also then stands to reason that on the other side of the fence, you would then be in trouble for suggesting that an individual, be that Tommy Robinson or whoever, has basically told people to smash up mosques and batter Muslims or whatever, which wasn't true.
So the problem, I think, is that we're playing a kind of reactive legal whack-a-mole, and that's what's going on, and that's not actually a sensible way to make laws. And what we're seeing is, yes, people say bad things on social media. Occasionally, or some of that, will end up being illegal in the sense that it's hate speech or it contributes to, it's a specific instruction to go and do an act which is criminal, which would be the same as if I were to say that in this studio now, that would be illegal. But I think on the social media thing, rather than focusing on how are certain pieces of news spread, how can we see what the algorithms are and how can that be public? And how can we have a system where if something isn't true, it isn't being spread, and we put the onus on the platforms that we're using and how we engage with those, rather than trying to endlessly do this weird balancing act of someone said a bad thing over here, that person's going to be dealt with. Now someone said a bad thing over here, we have to deal with this. And endlessly, this endless escalation of policing speech, rather than focusing on really, really bad crimes, really bad physical actions took place in the riots, and there would have been some speech acts which also are directly involved in those. Those are the things which should be the focus for law enforcement and the justice system. And then if we are concerned about the spread of lies, misinformation, untruths, etc., we should look at how those things are spread, which means understanding, which we don't know, social media algorithms. Those should be a public thing so that researchers, so that the government, so that all of us can say, this spread because of this reason, so that we can know if someone is in a febrile situation, someone does say something about something, we can say at this point something should click in so that that information doesn't spread, or things about that subject doesn't spread for X hours, or whatever it might be.
I know, but you know where you're going to head with that, because Elon Musk gets a load of hassle at the moment because people are saying, he's created this Wild West or whatever in Twitter or X. But before Elon Musk actually took over that platform, there was so much throttling of information based on it being what I would call the wrong kinds of opinions. So many people were shadow banned and things like that to stop their perspective from getting traction, because whoever was running that platform at the time, I would argue, didn't really like those kind of opinions. So you've got to be careful what you wish for.
But actually, there was another reason as well. They were trying to protect, and as most of the mainstream media is today, they're trying to protect their advertising base. Because if you appeal to the left, then the big advertisers will come in, right? Whether it be Disney or Unilever or any of those, they'll all come in. Immediately, the right start getting a view, right? Then suddenly that advertising gets pulled. It's an incredible and difficult moment. So my bet is in the future, if I'm still around in 10 years' time, my bet is that X or Twitter will be behind a paywall.
Actually, go.
Yeah, I think transparency is the thing that we want. I don't think some kind of secretive agreement between governments and social media companies is in any way good, because views that are opposed to the government are more likely to be shut down than other ones. But us being able to see publicly, why did X get shown, sorry, not X as in Twitter, why did some post get shown to loads of people? You can see the algorithm, we can research it and understand it, because this is our public forum now. You know,
Yeah,
20 years ago, researchers researchers.
These are private companies.
Sure, and so
why should this is Elon Musk's? You know, I don't want to go Kentucky Fried Chicken in your special secret recipe or whatever. But why would he disclose his trade secrets?
Because it's to
everybody.
This is the public forum in exactly the same way that GB News or newspapers have some responsibilities to the wider public, and therefore there should be a degree of transparency. Now, the transparency in newspapers was, well, the thing was published, so you could go and have a look, and you could do research and analysis of it. Likewise, TV, you could research how long things were watched for, what was watched, what's broadcast and how. We can't do that with social media because it's a hidden thing with the algorithm. And that is what information we are shown. That is the public sphere of today. So we have to be able to see why we are being shown the information that we're shown. That's not a bad thing. It doesn't impinge on those. We're saying that should happen for all of the social media sites. And, you know, and that should be clear and open.
Just briefly, Kelvin.
The answer then is to go behind a paywall so that you don't have to face the idea that this is not open for all, right? That's what I would do. I'd do it tomorrow. And it would stop Musk railing on all the time about the fact that there's no advertising and get people to pay. In essence, I pay anyway to get a blue tick. I pay £8 a month as it stands. I want everybody. It'd keep the left off because they can't afford it.
Kelvin.